Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm going to give you an introduction on generics in Java. So this video will give you an idea of what generics is and how it works, right? And why is it necessary? So let's first write a program which doesn't use generics, okay? And we'll find the problem, okay? Then we'll go into generics, okay? So let's say I have a class. Let's say I have a class named A, and this class, say I have a constructor which actually, why do we use generics in the scenario uh, when we do not want to specify our code for some specific data type? For example, we want to write a code which should work for integer as well as with double as well as with string, okay? So it should be specified from the main method, right? So we should not have to write different versions of code if we want to use some different say data types, okay, or classes. So that is the reason when we'll be going for generics. Now see, you can say one thing, why should we use generics? We can simply use the object class, right? Because object class is the parent class of all the classes, isn't it? So we could simply write use the object class, right? Object o maybe, right? And then maybe we can, let's say, let's create a reference of object, and then maybe we can simply write reference equal to o, right? Now if we create if we send a string value, it will work. If we set an integer value, it will also work, right? Let's do it. So let's say I want to create an object of class A. So I can create it like this: a say obj equals to new A, right? And inside this, I have to send something. Say let me send say 1. So it works. Right? Some other functions. Let's say I want to print the value. So object display, right? Then here I want to return reference. Okay. So how can I retrieve the value? I can simply call obj dot display, and I can, like, it is object type, so maybe I can do something like this. Object, let's say I have an integer value, say so I'll just write int a equals to obj dot display, but it will not work since object needs to be converted to integer, right? Object is a class and integer is another class. Sorry, integer is not a class, it's a data type. So it will be automatically unboxed, right? Auto boxing and unboxing, I hope you know that. So I can also write here integer as well. So I need to convert it. So how to typecast? We have to write here uh, integer like this. Okay, so it will work fine. If I execute this code, you can see there is, okay, I didn't print it. Let's print the value of a. If I run this value, see 1. Okay, so if I now change, if I copy this, let's say I want to apply this for some string value. So will it work? Let's say I'll give my name Satyam. Now I'll just write here string, and I will typecast it to a string value, and here obj, let's say obj s, let's say this is obj I for integer. Let's make the changes: obj I, obj s. Now if I execute this code, there is still some error. Okay, string, let's say uh, p, print here p. Now if I execute it, you can see 1 as well as Shottam is printed. So it is working. So it is working generally, right? What is the meaning of that? Means from the main method we can we can use any type of data, and it will be reflected in the class A, right? So it is kind of dynamic thing, right? And we wanted that. But what is the problem? The first problem is here this obj has to be typecasted manually. That is one problem. Okay, so this typecasting is necessary. That is one thing. The next thing is the compiler has no idea what kind of data is this class storing, right? It has no idea. It is simply storing something in the object, whether it is integer, it is float, it is double, it is string. The compiler has no idea, right? It will simply be stored as an object. So that is not good. That is not good for some reasons. One of the reason is some errors might be happening during runtime. You can check one thing. Let's say A here, the reference A, if I assign some reference B to A, what is happening here? See what is the error? Type mismatch, cannot convert this, right? Okay, let's write here. Okay, it should work fine. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to use the object obj I, and let's assign it objs. Now what happens? Is it fine? It is not fine, because now using obj I can say, for example, I can access reference, right? Or better, let's call the display, isn't it? I can do this, right? And let's assign it to some. Now you see obj I is for integer, right? So I'll obviously try to store it with an integer I, let's say, isn't it? But this is a problem. You can check this type mismatch. Okay, from object to integer. Okay, this is not a problem. This is compile time error. So compile time error is fine. But so how can you solve it? We'll simply write say integer. Okay, now let's typecast it integer obj. Now see, the error is gone, and that is the problem. Is this code fine? I don't think so, because objs is a string type, right? And obj is integer type. Now I'm assigning the string reference to the integer reference, and I'm trying to get the value. Now if I run this code, you can see there is an exception. And always remember, exception is very bad. Exception is very bad because this is runtime error, and runtime errors are always to be avoided. Okay, so this is the problem. That is why we cannot use this approach. There is certain issues. Okay, so what is the better approach? We want to do all these things. See, the two problems. The first problem is we need to typecast it manually, right? And the second thing is the compiler doesn't know of this kind of problems, because the compiler has no idea what obj I is storing or what obj is storing, because everything is stored as object. Only at runtime it will be seen by the JVM, and an exception will be thrown. So to overcome this problem, what we need to do, we need to use the generics. So it's very simple. How can you write a generic class? So see, already curly braces are used. right, for blocks. mm, the square brackets are used for arrays, right, and or indexing. And what else do we have? So fast brackets are used for function parameters, right, method parameters. So only thing that is left is angular bracket. So angular bracket is used for specifying generics. Okay, so we can simply write here t, for example. Now what is this t, or what does it mean? It means that we can send any type, we can assign any type of data, be it integer, be it float, be it double, be it string. It will be copied to t. Means t can be replaced by any class, not data type. T can be replaced by any class. That is the thing which I want to say. Now if I create a class, if I create an object of class A with integer type, then that particular class or that object will work for integer. You can see it. I'll simply replace. See, earlier I had used object, right? Because object is a superclass of all the classes. Here I will use t. Here also I'll use t. In place of object, I'll be using t. Now see what happens. When I'm creating an object here of integer, for example, so here this t. Now how to do that? You can simply write it like this. Say a, then integer, new a, always after the class name, right? Just after the class name, you need to specify the class. Okay, so integer is a class. So when you write this, what happens is this integer is copied or is replaced here. Okay, this t is replaced by integer, and this t is also replaced by integer. This t is also replaced by integer. So integer type reference is created, integer type object is created, and everything works like that. Here the return type of display is integer if we create the class using integer here. Okay, so how does it work? Now if I execute this code, what will happen? Let's say let's comment out this code. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so the second one is string, right? Let's fill it up. So string, and again after the class name I'll put string. Now you can see this is not possible. You can see this is not possible. Earlier this was a runtime exception. Okay, but now it is caught during the compilation itself. So that is why we'll be using the generics, because the compiler knows exactly what this obj is s is pointing to. Obj s is supposed to be pointing to a string data, and obj I is supposed to be pointing to integer data. So the compiler knows it. That is why it is detecting the error right during the compilation. So compiler is very good. Compiler is better than runtime error. So we cannot do this, right? So this is illegal. So it is stopped right away. First thing. The second thing is we no more need to typecast anything. We need not do it. It will be typecasted automatically because the compiler knows. Okay, no need of typecasting. Now if I execute this code, you can check it out. Exactly correct answer is coming. So how is it working? Here when I'm writing this line of code, what happens is an object I, obj I is created, but specifying that it will work only with integer data. Okay, so after the class name you are putting the angular bracket. Here also just after the class name you are putting the angular bracket. Okay, here also after the class name you are putting the angular bracket. So it is easy to remember. And here the return type, or sorry, the data type is t. Here t can be any class. So here it is integer. Now remember one thing, we cannot write int here. We cannot send int because int is a primitive data type, right? And it generics only work with classes. So I cannot write this. I have to have some class names. Okay, integer. So now it will work. So it works for integer, it works for string, not an issue. So I think you got the idea, right? Why we should be using the generics. And it is very easy to use. It is simply dynamic, nothing else, right? It is simply dynamic. You can write t and you can simply change everything. Okay, you can change everything from the control everything from the main method, right? Also we can send more than one, right? T comma v, it will work. Here now we need to specify two parameters. Let's say I want to send string, maybe, right? Then this also comma string, and here let's say this is okay, let's delete it. Let's keep it simple now. Okay, so here okay, we need to send two values. Here I'm sending one value, but I'm not using v. Let's also use v. Let's say I want to have another, so v of p, maybe. So one variable which is of type v, right? And this is what it means. And here also let's have, so v reference 2 maybe, and this is reference 1. So reference 1 equal to this, reference 2 equals to, let's say, p, right? So it should work. Here also return, um say, what do I want? Okay, let's say this is display 1. Okay, and so it will be sending reference 1. And let's say I have another method, just trying to keep it very simple, just not to complicate it. So display 2, and this will be sending reference 2. Okay, what is the problem? Okay, this should return v type. See the beauty. It is being detected at the compile time itself by the compiler. So it is very good. And here, okay, so it will be display 1, integer value will be returned, and yeah, and int b maybe, sorry, not int, let's say string b equals to obji. Let's not make it obji, doesn't look good, doesn't make any sense. Obj dot display 2, right? And now I'm supposed to send two values, right? Because here we are in the constructor, we are sending two values, we are receiving two values, so we have to send two values, and the second one should be some string. So 1 comma Satyam maybe. Yeah, yeah, so it should work fine. Now if I execute this code, you can see again 1 is printed. Okay, so because I have printed only a here, let's also, okay, I cannot do that. A plus b should work. So 1 Satyam, yes. So we can send any number of like parameters here, right? Depending on what types of data I want. Okay, so it is possible. So the next thing is, um, what can I do in case? Okay, not what can I do. We can do something else with this. Okay, let's check it. How it? What do I mean? Mm, yeah. Let's say we have all this. Let's delete all these things. Let's delete all the complications. Let's delete all the complications. Okay, now suppose I have a situation. Now this example I have taken from the book of Java by Herbert Schilt. So it might be very familiar to you. It's very easy, so I'm using it. So let's say I have something. mm, let's say I have an array. Okay, so I have an array and I want to find the average of the array. Okay, so the array can hold integer values, or it can hold some double values, right? Let's say the two options are possible. Now in that case, what can you do using generics? How do you do it? So let's say he will specify the type of the data, right? So fine, let's first take the data. So let's create a reference. mm, let's name it num itself, just like the book, and it is a array, right? And let's now write the constructor. So the constructor will take an array again. Let's say it is say x maybe. Inside this, I'll simply assign num equals to x. Done. So the array I have stored it in num, right? Now the second thing is, what I need to do is I need to find a sum, right? So let's say I have something called as double sum equals to 0. So you see, mm, whether it be integer, whether it be double, I don't care. I want to have the average as a double value, right? So if that is the situation, what can we do? You can maybe directly take, for example, for, let's write a for loop. So for int I equals to 0, I less than what is the array? Num dot length dngth, okay, and I plus plus. Inside this I can simply write sum plus equals to num I, and I want to get the double value, right? So because whether it be integer, it be anything, so I want to have the double value no matter what the data type is. So final result should be double. That is what I want. Whether it be integer values I send, whether it be double values I send, I want to have the average as the double value. So I'll simply write convert it or extract the double value. So double value like this. Okay. And the next thing is I need to calculate the average, right? So what should I return? I should return a sum divided by the length of the array, right? Num dot length, right? So okay, there is some error. Let's see. Syntax error. Okay. Okay, fine. Here I need to calculate it inside a method, right? I cannot return it from a class directly. So let's say I want to have a double result maybe, right? And fine, keep it inside. Let's do it. Now what is the error? What is the, okay, I don't think bracket, right? Bracket. Okay. Now see, there is an error during compile time. Okay, and I cannot proceed. What is the problem? It is what I want to extract the double value, right? But what the compiler knows is that it can have the t class, can be any class, right? Here t can be string, t can be double, t can be integer, right? So for integer, I can get the double value. That is fine, because you should understand how it works. Is there is a number class. So under the number class is extended by double class. Number class is extended by integer class, right? So number is the super class of integer as well as double. So this double value method is a method which is placed in the number class, right? So all the classes which are subclasses of number class will get the method double value. Okay, but how can I make sure, or how can I convince a compiler that I'll only be using numbers here? Because as t can be anything, I can send a string also, array of string. So then the double value cannot be accessed, right? That is why the compiler is saying I cannot do that. I cannot extract a double value from a string array, or I cannot extract the double value from a string value, right? It is not possible. Only if t is a number, then only double value will work. Otherwise, it will not work. That is why the compiler is saying that you cannot proceed. Okay. Now let me just write it here. So I'll just create objects. So a, what should I write? It's an integer, as I promised. So I'll not be using string. I'll be using only integer or double. So let's create obj1 equals to new a followed by integer, and then simply be sending some values maybe. Okay, inside this, what happened? Too smart. Send some integer values. Okay, that's fine. So what is the error here? Syntax error, annotation expected in think. Just simply write an array like this. Let's send this. Okay, so it should work. Again, if I use a double, for example, copy it. So let's say I want to have double here. Let's say all are double values. Okay, and here also I should put double. Here also I should put double, right? Let's make it obj2, sorry, 2. And okay, let's change the name, array 2. Okay, and we'll simply call the two methods, right? So obj1 dot result, print it, put it in println, it best would be obj2 dot result. So this is the structure we have written. Okay, so we want to we want to print the average of this particular integer array, as well as we want to print the average of this particular double array. Okay, and our program should work, but it is not working. Why? Because I'm trying to extract the double value, uh, which is applicable for integer as well as double. I'm being very honest, so I'm using integer as well as double, but the compiler is not convinced. The compiler thinks that maybe I'll be using, for example, I'll be using a string class as a string data. Okay, so like this, maybe the compiler is thinking like this. So I might use something called a string here, and I'll name it 3, array 3, and I'll send some string values here. Say SATYAM. Okay, uh, say for example, let's say uh, some names, right? So here you see obj3, and let's make it string. Let's make it string, right? And I'll put array 3 here, and here object 3. See, no compilation error here, but I'm saying that I'll be very honest and I'll not use a string array, because you see I cannot have the average of these string values, right? It is not applicable. Average is only applicable for integer and double, right? For this scenario. Now, although I am very sure that I'll not be using string values, the compiler is not convinced, because I can write this write this line, and it will be an exception if I run execute this code. That is why the compiler is saying that you cannot have you cannot extract the double value. Okay, so what can I do in this case? I can do is I can use something very magical. What I can do is I can simply convince the compiler that I want t to be some subclass of number. then T cannot be string, T cannot be any other class. T can only be some subclass of number class. So I can write it like this: extends number. Done. As simple as that. Now see, the error is propagated here. Why? Because I'm using string here. I cannot extract I cannot find the average of string. It is not applicable. This double value is not applicable for string. That is why it is an error. And moreover, how the compiler is detecting this error? By seeing this extends number. String is not a subclass of number. Here string is being replaced, right? This T is being replaced by string, and string extends number is false. Okay, that is why the compiler is really stopping this error. So I can simply delete it. Always know compile time error is very fine. Then runtime error, if I execute this code, we'll get the result. So whether it be integer array, it be double array, it will work fine. Okay, the only requirement is all the classes, integer class or the double class, it should be a subclass of number. That's it. So it is applicable for any class. In place of number, you can write any class. Maybe you have written your own class, okay, and you want to have only the subclasses of your class, then you can write that class here. So it will work. T will be replaced, and T will only work if it is some subclass of the number class or whatever class you have written here. So I think that's it for this video. In this video, I only wanted to give a basic idea of what generics is, and I think you got the idea, right? And moreover, generics also ensures like type checking problems. Like the compiler has idea what the type of data we are working with, rather than saying it as objects, right? So it ensures that we'll be using such and such data types only, right? Here, by ensuring extends number, what we are ensuring is will not allow T to be any class which is not a subclass of number. Okay, so that is what you need to remember. That is why we'll be using generics. It is safe to use. Okay, thank you for this video. See you in the next video.